Well, today we have Cherian Abhishek with us here. He's the head barman, owner of Spiffy Dapper, unofficially a woodsmith, architect, engineer, and a serial explorer of failures. Does that?
I'm actually officially an engineer.
So he's officially an engineer. The rest are
Actually,
unofficially.
wait, if only diploma, then how? Are you technically an engineer? Maybe assistant engineer.
Assistant engineer in Singapore sense, to be honest, I don't know. Just want to do a quick disclaimer and warning before we start the show. If you're on speaker right now, please be aware that there might be some F-bomb or a variety of indecency language being used. So, of course, George will put on his best behavior. But today's his birthday, so I don't want to stress him out too much.
Yes.
And welcome to the show. So, George, really quickly, you've been here since the age of 16 and currently a PR, permanent resident of Singapore. You're the first non-Singaporean I interview you on the show. But I feel that you are just as Singaporean as any one of us. Will you identify yourself culturally as
Singaporean, or?
Singaporean? Yeah?
Yeah,
or like a mix of Indian, Singaporean, Indiporian?
Indiporian, I think I spent my young adulthood here, so I hung out at Far East and went to Hard Rock and saw Kumar and did reggae nights and hung out at Hendrix, and that was my 18th birthday, and so I guess I've done pretty much all the rites of passage except for NS.
Yeah.
But
you don't need to do NS back in the days, right? Because right now they have this new plan whereby to get PR,
No.
Still not yet.
So if my child, my male child, would have to do NS.
Okay. And if you were to get citizenship, do you need to do NS?
No.
No. Oh, that's
No.
great.
It's not a practical situation. Like you can't have somebody who's like fucking 40 years old and like, hey, citizen say now go 2 years, go army, cannot, right? So it's not a practical situation for Singapore, I think.
No, I mean, I wouldn't do NS if after the age of 30. It's just way too, the opportunity cost is way too big to do the NS.
I think some of the people are doing that National Volunteer Corps thing. Mm-hmm. I really want to do it.
Oh, that's the one in the US? No?
No lah, bro. Singapore has.
NCC is that? No, what's that?
There's a thing where women and new citizens and permanent residents can serve in I think it's the Army Civil Defense or whatever for I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks or a month or something like that.
Actually, I want to touch a bit on India because I always heard opposing reviews of friends who have been to India. They either hate it or love it a lot. I took the liberty yesterday to Google Kerala. I found some interesting data. So it's the south coast of India. So let me just look at my data over here. Positive population growth rate. Lowest positive population growth rate of 3.44%, highest literacy rate 93%, and the highest life expectancy of 77 years.
This is awesome. Okay, so Kerala is on the southwest coast, so which means that there's this monsoon. So the Indian peninsula is like this. Mm-hmm. Kerala's like here, and there's this monsoon that comes here like this, right? And then there's this group of hills here. So Kerala gets all the fucking rain, which means for centuries and millennia, Kerala always had rain. So it's monsoon comes like this, hits the hills, and we get the rain. It goes over to Tamil Nadu, which is the other side, which is where most of the Indians in Singapore come from.
Oh.
So they speak Tamil, right? So most of the time, by the time it gets there, it's fucking dry air. So they don't really get a lot of water. So, but over time, what happened is, so Kerala has been, traditionally a very fertile land.
Okay.
But over the last, let's say, 50 years, the guys in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, which are the states above, they figured out, let's trap this water and build proper irrigation system. So now Tamil Nadu makes more produce than Kerala.
But Kerala still is fertile. And
so
I saw a lot of tea leaf. Is that where?
Well, there is some
hills.
There's hills and there's, all kinds of spaces, right? But the key thing is, because of Kerala's history, Keralites traditionally had time for other bullshit, like communism, and workers' rights and not killing your female children and stuff like that. Very progressive in India. It's a fact of life in India that, especially in the olden days, female child is known as a burden. So sometimes when female children are born, they would just go to the fucking river and drown the kid, man. That's how it is.
That's intense.
That's intense, like, but that was just the way of life, right? But in Kerala, because you had food, and you most of the time were not in poverty, which means that you could keep the girls alive, which means you could send the girls to school, which means you could go to school yourself or send your kids to school, and that kind of helped Kerala get to where it is. I think it's purely just a matter of geography that has led to the prosperity.
Life expectancy as well as
similarly, the other direct opposite would be West Bengal, which is where Calcutta is.
Okay.
Calcutta is very similar. It's near the Sundarbans, which is the world's biggest wetland area. So they also have always had food, which means they have always had time for awesome stuff like workers' rights and communism and all that stuff. Like in Kerala, right?
Yeah.
One term is the left government, which is the communists, and then is the rights, and then they switch. Not ever since independence have they had 2 terms in one go, and that's beautiful Kerala because they just keep going like.
So does that like sort of deter the progress of the state because it's moving from
Progress
one to the other?
Progress can be looked in both ways, man. So if you have if the right just go like this and the left just go like this, whatever it is, flip the curve, whatever. But it's not meeting the will of the people. But if the will of the people is like, I give you some power, then I take it back and I give you some power. So just like overall, the state kind of goes like this because the trade has traditional basics of prosperity. So they don't let anybody fuck it up on the long term. So I think
this is a good thing.
So the Kerala is a good thing going on. Yeah.
And you've been there since till the age of 16. Could you paint us like a picture of like your situation in Kerala? Do you stay in one of those boathouses that I saw on Wikipedia?
Not allowed, bro.
Do people stay there?
I guess some people did back in the day.
No, it's super cool. It's super cool.
I think now it's only tourists do it. People are normal, man. We live in land and things like that.
And how is your situation back in Kerala? It's like
so my parents were actually missionaries. So we went around Kerala. So I lived in different parts of Kerala. But eventually, when I was I think 14, I came back to my hometown, which is basically like this big fucking hill. It's like halfway between the hill, there's a house, long ass house. It's one of those old houses where you build one room, then one more member of the family, you build another room, and 50 years later, you have this long ass house with nothing above, just like this long house is and every room has 2 doors, right? So you go to bedrooms, both have doors at 2 ends. It's a very weird house. And they have a long ass veranda, which they build after. So it's like one of those houses last time they used to build like that. Like when families expand, you just build a room and build a room. This is one of those houses.
Now we know the story. I'm excited to go check out this long row of houses. Is
there
a name for it?
It's one house.
It's one house, but it just keeps extending every time there's a new member of the family that came.
Something like that. At one time I remember there were I think great-grandfather, grandfather, dad, me. So it's 4 generations living in the house. And it's lunch was especially during harvest season, lunch prepared for 40, 50 people.
Wow. So is there a living room for everyone to eat together or sort of just...
No, we all just sit outside and sit on the ground.
That's cool.
Yeah, farmers, bro.
Very cool. And what made you came to Singapore? I mean, you had the scholarship. Also, what were your plans before and how did that sort of twist and turn and then end up in Nanyang Poly doing engineering?
Well, I wanted to be an architect or I wanted to go and just do product design. I actually wanted to do product design here, but during the interview, I built this prototype of a bike from junk. And they thought, hey, this is a good engineer. I thought they would say this is a great product designer, but they didn't think that way, so fuck.
So you got here and got a scholarship to learn engineering in Nanyang Poly.
Yeah, I guess.
Pretty much sums it all up.
Well, pretty much it's back in the day, Singapore was still, focused on a manufacturing economy and you had engineers. So you had your theoretical engineers and you had your minion engineers. So I was the minion engineer part. So what they did is they allowed us to come to Singapore and pay the same school fees that Singaporeans pay, right? So it's a pretty good deal. In return, we have to work for 5 years. So that was the deal. So I wouldn't really call it a scholarship because you still have to pay your school fees and all that stuff. But it was significantly cheaper than if you were just a private student coming to Singapore and
That's true.
enrolling in a poly. Yeah.
How did that sort of make you end up sleeping in the park? Is it the park for a month? What is that even possible? How do you even hike the police to end park?
Actually, it's not very hard. It's pretty easy. Anyways, so SARS came. I was working in this seafood and Western seafood restaurant. It's called Key Largo. They couldn't keep me on shift, so I didn't have money because I was not going to work. So then at that point in time, I was living in this room with like 6 other guys. It's like one HDB room with 6 other people. And like, no money. Paying $150 a month, right? And like, fuck, no money. So, okay lah. Then the guy like, okay, fuck off. I'm like, okay, cool. So then I kept all my like clothes and stuff there and I left. It was actually not too bad because I was still at school. So I used to like sleep in one of those. Singapore's great, right? You have the in between the HDB flats, you have the, what do you call it, the play things, and you always have the
playground.
Yeah, playground. You have the steps,
slide.
And there's like this whole thing, and then the slide. So in between, there's enough space for you to actually just lie down. And most of the time, you lie down there, nobody sees because folks are doing it.
It is sort of like closed and it's sheltered from the rain.
And unless you're like making issues, right? Like if you go there and make noise, and some neighbor will complain and call the cops. Otherwise, cops like see you like sitting there, like okay. Some guy doing his whatever the fuck. They don't disturb you. So then you sleep there, wake up, go to school, swimming pool, swim, shower, back in the game, then go to the computer lab in school, obviously, and sit and do whatever. And then that was the day.
Okay, so it's not like a situation whereby you're in a Bishan Park.
I was in Bishan Park a couple of times, obviously.
Oh, so it's like, stop around.
You can't be like staying in the same fucking park every day. Then obviously,
I thought there's like a territory for people. Who
that is how you get caught, bro.
Oh, well there you go. the wise words.
So you're gonna move around.
Okay. And what was food situation like when you had no money?
So at $20, right?
Per day.
No, bro.
Oh shit! What do you eat?
So at that point in time, NTUC's bread was $1.
Okay.
Right. So it was like back, I don't know.
Gardenia, whatever.
No, bro.
No.
NTUC plain white bread. It was a big ass. And at that point in time, they had 20% more.
Okay, yeah.
So like it was $1, like a flat $1. Then I had a Nutella, which is expensive purchase, $5, right? And then
what's Nutella? Very fancy.
And the ultimate treat was the Nariskis stewed pork with bamboo. So
how many days do you eat it for a month?
Just about a month, yeah.
So you had about, I reckon you need 3 loaves per month.
I go and then like, I sneak back into my friends' houses or whatever, like, just do my thing, like,
Okay.
It's not all the way, but it's
right. So you should put your bread and Nutella thing at the house.
Oh, that was in the bag.
Oh, that was in the bag.
Yes.
Okay, with the pork sometimes when you feel happy or it's a good day,
like
then you bring it out. Oh, it's a bad day.
There's a limit to the number of porks you can buy with $20. You see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a.
And Nutella lasts you for a month.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. I think if I were to do it, I'll probably choose Nutella instead of peanut butter too.
Interesting question. Why did it not have peanut butter? Oh, I know.
Wait. Okay, go for it.
I think it's because probably need to be I think you need to refrigerate peanut butter, right?
You don't. No, actually you shouldn't because then it's too hard. Same as Nutella too.
I had this impression that you had to. Maybe that's why. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hoboing in Singapore.
And then what did you learn anything out of that trip?
Oh yeah,
Reflecting back, like
that was awesome. Like that was like the happiest time of my life, without doubt. So like I had a computer, like things like a boy like me needed was a computer, Medal of Honor, a bicycle, skateboard. I had everything. My life was complete before I got kicked out of the house. But then I didn't have anything because, I think I sold the skateboard before I left. So my bicycle was at home, computer. So it was kind of a liberating feeling not being connected to things, because that really changed my life outlook. But after that, like that was cool. Like I thought it'd be shit, but
I mean the first 2 nights probably is. No.
Will I be like, I got kicked out, whatever, let's go. I thought like I would smooth my way back in, the next day,
that did happen.
Then I kind of like tried to get in. Then he's like, "Fuck off." So I was like, "All right, that didn't work." So that was that.
And I think you adopt like a minimalism. I think it's very similar to traveling too. What you got, because when I do my backpacking, I realize that I only need the few things in my life that really makes me happy, and I could leave off very little.
Yeah, absolutely. It's even now, like in my life, I need very few things. I need my MacBook, my charger, my phone.
Clothes.
Yeah, so clothes would be usually in one or similar color and a couple of pairs of jeans and some shoes. That's about it.
Same here.
Underwear, lots of underwear. I have more underwear than anything else.
Yeah, so fast forward a little bit, you got your first job as a barman, and then you worked really hard on it and make a way up to being a shareholder or director of sorts. And after which you had a blackout and left after a year and a half. But then you got dragged back in because of some mess that was. Can you just tell us a little bit of the story?
So it was pretty simple. I mean, looking back at it. So 2008 is when the massive boom in Singapore real estate happened, and that was, property is kind of like doubled kind of shit, like bam, right? Like 2006, 2008, properties just went like this. So at that point in time, the property that we were in got bought over, and my partner saw the opportunity to sell back his lease. He sold and he buggered off. But
you left. Then you were away. Already.
I was away. I was not part of that. But
okay.
He was he sold the lease. But due to the way his companies were structured, the lease was one company, operations was one company, which is how you should do it. After that, very very smart way of doing it. But anyways, but since I was the only PR director of a company, I had to fucking clear up the mess. That was hardcore. Just like things were unpaid, so I had to kind of go and figure out how to do it. Eventually, over the next 2-3 years, I learned the law and learned how to do accounts, and went to court a number of times. And fucking.
Why do you need to go to court? What happened there?
So anytime you have.
Was that a small claim court? People
both. So you have small claims and you have not the lawyer court lah. That one not yet. But it's effectively you have a couple of stages. If, for example, it's very useful information.
Yeah, I actually want to know.
So if you don't file your returns, right?
Yeah.
Or your taxes, they wait for a long time, a fucking long time. It's like 2 years, 3 years. They wait for you, and then they send you a letter with an offer for composition.
Okay.
Right, which means that if by this time you do, then you pay a fine, you're done, finish. Right?
Okay.
And then you still never do, then they ask you to go to court.
Okay.
Right? So you have to go to the court. And then it's like a line. It's like just like paying a traffic fine. So it's a line, and then you're like, okay, I want, you say your reason, like I want like 3 months. Then first adjournment, they give you 3 months. Then they make it 1 month. Then they make it 2 weeks. At the end of which, it's more than enough time to figure it out, to do it.
Right.
And then at the end of it, if you do ready, you pay your composition fine, you submit it, and it's finished. Right? But the problem is, with me, I didn't have the necessary, know-how.
Okay.
Or I did not, because company laws have to have like X% of the shareholders and stuff have to be here to make it happen. Like,
Yeah.
Right, more than 50% of the shareholders must be here. Like, all this shit was like, didn't know how to get it done now, so like, fuck. So there was like, you have two agencies that would always come after you, which is IRAS and ACRA.
Yeah.
Right?
But they're different. I didn't know
that.
I thought they were together.
IRAS just controls the fucking, companies, right? Your basic returns and compliance and all that. Taxman takes care of the money. Right? So if you don't file for 3 years, effectively you're looking at 6 charges. Right? 3 from IRS, 3 from ACRA, which means that each most of the time the charges will be on different days. So like 1 week you go for this year, next week you go for next year, then you adjourn.
And you were the one like representing the
yeah. There's only one left, man. And then you have creditors. Creditors are even funnier. Creditors you can actually get by because
we have no money.
You have no money. So it takes about 15 grand plus to bankrupt a company in Singapore. So if your company has paid up capital of like $1,000 or whatever, like they can't really claim anything other than suing you for mismanagement, which would cost you even more money. But if you have no money, suing you for mismanagement is suing me into bankruptcy, which would cost even more money, so it makes no sense for them, right? Yeah. But I was also not part of the thing, so they can't really sue me for mismanagement. So they're in a pickle. So they have people like,
So mainly you have problems from IRAS and ACRA.
No, but the rest also you have problems, but it's also negotiation. So if the company owes somebody like 10 grand, for example, right? Then they will take your small claims and then you'll explain, okay, this is the situation, this is like, I can maybe pay $50 a month. And they'll be like, obviously they will like protest, like, then I'll be like, lay out the facts like, hey bro, no company bro. Look. What you want? You want $50 a month or you want?
Zero.
You want to sue me to bankruptcy and you spend more money and then you still don't get anything, or you want $50 a month? Most of the time, they take 50 lah. So, it's a big move, but desperate times, desperate measures. But it's the only thing you can do, like, just nothing else. But most of the times in big companies like that, they just... Were
you afraid back then to land yourself in jail or get kicked back?
Abu Dhabi.
No, I'll be afraid.
So like for the first like 1.5 years, I was like, fuck this shit, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna go to prison anyways, and I was like, maybe I'll go to prison. I'll write like a novel that will, win the Booker Prize or something like that. So it's like, let's just go to prison, man.
Very very positive attitude to it.
Because so then I thought, so I spent like the first 1.5 years just like drinking, going on stupid dates, maxing out all my credit cards, just like doing it. Then like 1.5 years later, I was like, okay, this is not good. Let's just like, take control back and then, figure it out.
Would you say that would be one of like the toughest period in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Well, it's a stupid period, I think. Just like, I would say coward. I did not have the balls to kind of look into what was coming at me. So, but once I had the balls to kind of look at it and just like, okay, fuck it, just gonna deal with it,
How do you get out of that situation? I mean, like, I know the technicalities of that, but more like psychologically, what flipped, or is there any person, books, or anything that?
Actually, it was not like an immediate thing. So what happened was, so I was on this path, right? So I was working at a married vacation club. I was doing telemarketing. I was working a pilot internet marketing project and all that. So I had like, my head was, and at the same time I was running a small record label.
And what's that?
It's called 108 Fashion. It's still around, I think. It's a hip hop label. And then I had like all this shit on my head, right? And I used to be very good at remembering things, and I could kind of apply, but my head was always like. So then I was just figuring out how to like be more productive. What his name? Anyways, there was this guy. There was this book, and his idea was open loops and closed loops. Open loops are the things you don't know the answer to. Closed loops are the things you know the answer to. If you know the answer to something, you don't think about it that much. That's it. Finish. Hard drive somewhere. Stored. Open loops, you're always like trying to process, right?
Yeah.
So as we grow in life, open loops are like around our head. So you kind of like only see straightforward because your periphery is all these things that you're always thinking about. All these people are stressed or kind of like fucking, think too much, overthink. They usually cannot see the periphery because the brain is just too fucking taxed. So I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. So Getting Things Done, I think that's the name of the book.
Okay, I think I know.
Yeah.
What book you're talking about.
Yeah, so that was the idea. So I basically did a brain dump thing, which is basically writing down everything in your head, like without thinking. And then he had this thing of tasks, projects, obligations, responsibilities, goals, or something like that. Then I arranged it based on that. So I dumped everything, then I basically arranged, or taxonomy work, right? Then I had this massive Excel sheet. And then it was not very practical. So I started moving that into a mind map. I had this big ass mind map. And then for the first time, I could actually see me, right? So like my fucking brain looking back at me kind of thing. And when I like looked at that, I was like, oh my God, you're an idiot. You know, that was like very plain and clear as to what my problems were.
Where was that? What was that back then that you're trying to fix?
Well, my problem was I had too many things around my head that I couldn't see what was happening around me. So because of that, most of the problems that I had could be solved with a little bit of common sense. But because I was overthinking everything, I was just looking at it too straight. I did not think about how to fix it. So when I kind of like did the brain dump and the mind map, all of a sudden, things that were on the side, just clouding kind of went away, and I could kind of see things a lot clearly. And just having that allowed me to process things a lot better. So it was not like, wow, nirvana fucking moment, fucking eureka moment, right? It was more like, over time, the brain slowly figured out, hey, we could make this process work a little bit better. Let's create some more synapses and fucking look at this problem in a different way. And I think that's really what happened. It was a slow process,
Yeah.
Took about.
Is there someone who introduced you to that book, or sort of just like a chance encounter that fell into your lap at the right time?
So, yeah, I knew my life was shit. That much I knew. So I went to the library, NLB in Central, the fucking Bugis one, right? The big one.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I was working on CR Street. So I used to go there to read pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
So then there was a section of audiobooks, a couple of books. One was Dale Carnegie's Class Act System, which I started, and that was very important for me. That was a big part of what because I came here and I basically grew up without a father figure to guide me throughout. My first boss was kind of a father figure, but that went to kind of shits. So I had to find something to kind of train me, because as a young man you definitely need somebody who tells you what it means to be a man, how to be a dude, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't fucking just learn that. Somebody's got to teach you. Somebody's got to show you the way. So the Dale Carnegie system was really good, because I stopped making excuses. I think that was maybe a pivotal point. Like, they had this chapter about taking responsibility. Like, sometimes when even it's not your fault, fucking take responsibility, own the problem, solve the problem, get on with it. And then the next book was, this getting things done. So it was audio books, and I would just like listen to them on the way to work on the train.
Yeah.
And then
that was great.
Yeah, that I think that really changed. So it was really just trying to figure out what the fuck was going on, where could I find some guidance? And most people who were offering guidance were asking for too much money, and I was kind of broke. So
did you actually try that route to ask seek advice from people?
Yeah. How do you say? Most people who had the problems I have, well, they want easy solutions, right? Everybody wants easy solutions.
They want the blue pill.
Yeah, and most people who helped or who were available for help like that, they wanted to give you the blue pill. But the blue pill situation was not something that could help me, because it's just I hate taking advice. Like,
We'll come to that. I love it.
Like, if you tell me a fucking train is coming at me and I can't see it, I'm not gonna fucking believe you. Open my eyes and I'll be fucking running, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I realized that I had to fucking see for myself. Like, I have this best friend, Tony. Mm-hmm. Every single screw up I've done in my life, he has predicted every time I get into it. Like I like do this, right? I'm like, dude, that's gonna end up fucked. I'm like, I'll do it. 6 months later, I'm like, dude, that was fucked, right? And he'll be like, yeah.
I told you so.
These days, he's kind of like given up on saying I told you so, because it's like, fucking, 14, 15 years of saying that, he's kind of like given up.
Yeah.
But, I really have to go and see for myself what the problem is, and eventually I figure it out. So I guess I had to dig my way through it,
What did Tony say about Spiffy Dapper when it first opened? Was this a moment that you proved
Do you know
wrong?
what? This is the only thing when I went into it, he's like, okay, this could work.
He said this could work.
Yeah.
So he still predicted it correctly.
I know, right?
Wow, this guy is a genius of sorts.
He's actually a genius. His IQ is fucking off the charts. Like, but zero EQ. Let's say zero EQ. Like, he can run any process through his head. Like, oh right, supercomputer, right? But then he'll be like, like very common social situations that we used to. He will ask me questions very seriously. At first, I was like, fucking serious. I'd be like, oh, this is a real problem. Like, you cannot comment on the size of a woman's breast. It's not exactly kosher.
Is Singaporean? No.
Actually, he's Singaporean now.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Chinese dude.
No, so he's Indian. He came on the same
okay.
flight with me, but he already took his citizenship a long time ago.
Right.
I haven't because, honestly speaking, I just haven't had the time to fill up all the shit. It's just like,
Okay. Would you?
oh, I really want to.
Okay.
Like, I've been wanting to.
I know. Actually, one of my questions is that would you actually go back to Kerala and maybe open a Spiffy Dapper there?
No, man, Singapore's home.
Okay.
Like, I went back in India a couple of times. Like, I'm on the flight back. I land to Changi, and I'm like, yes. Oh, I'm safe. I go to Bali, I come back, I'm safe. Like, everywhere, man. Just like, I'm pampered.
You seem to have a lot of good things to say about Singapore. Do you want to share a few? Just kick some common misconception out of the way for our bratty little kids.
Okay, I guess it's a common thing in every culture. You see that in America, you see that in Singapore, everywhere really. Immigrants work hard. Fact of life. If you're born in a country, and even children who are children of immigrants who've been born here in better situations, they don't have the same drive that immigrants do. So going through crappy situations definitely gives you a little bit of perspective on, what you want to do with your life, right? So Singapore right now has this fucking great place for somebody who's willing to work hard for an opportunity, right? And obviously there's a lot of, stuff that's, if you look deep down, there's wrong about it. Like, people talk about the arts and culture thing. But if you look at it on a more larger scale, I mean, right now we look at Venice's, fucking space of culture and everything. But if you look at when the city was founded, it was really a place for merchants, and which is what Singapore is now. And over time, Venice became the patron of the arts, right? And now it's known for that culture. It's an old thing. So as far as that goes, Singapore is a really young country. And we're already making those strides from a fully manufacturing-based economy. We're trying to push ourselves through, to find the heart of this country. And I don't expect the country to find it like tomorrow. And it's going to be maybe the next 40 years, 50 years,
agree.
right?
Yeah.
But eventually the process will happen because, the diaspora is getting self-actualized.
Yeah.
The basic issues are gone. I guess the last maybe 40 years, after independence, maybe 30, 40 years, was figuring out food, clothing, and shelter shit. Now we're trying to figure out who the fuck are we as a people. So there's obviously things that could be improved and all that stuff, but the fact remains that if you try reasonably hard, you can make it here. It is expensive, it's got all this shit going on, but it is ridiculous how much help you can get if you just get on with it. And I didn't believe it, right?
Is there any concrete examples you want to?
Okay, so people talk about the grant systems, right? And I used to believe that this was not very accessible. But the fact is that if you actually spend the time to solve a problem, and if you go and talk to the right people, when I say talk to the right people, it's not like they're in mystery. It's pretty much everything's there. Like, okay, you want to do this project, there's the right people to talk to. Obviously, you have to go through you have to write some fucking, proposals and all that stuff. It's not like, coming straight at you, but there's support to be had. And even if you have a normal idea, if you want to just go to private equity or whatever, there are so many angels, so much disposable income that is there for you to support whatever the fuck it is that you want to do.
We'll come back to that actually.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I want to talk to you about.
So Singapore's okay, bro.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I just want to get more concrete examples so people wouldn't think that we're talking air.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you.
No, I mean that example is great. The grant
The
system.
company thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll tell you, starting up a fucking company in other places, in other parts of the world, is so hard. Here, right? $300.
paperwork, right?
Right. $300, 15 minutes. Private limited company is registered. 2 days later, open a bank account. You're in business, bro. You have an idea. Next week, you can start charging people for it with a fucking checkbook. Hard to do anywhere else in the world. Anywhere else in the world.
Could you give a comparison, like if you're in Korea right now, how long would the process will take? You wouldn't even know.
You would, obviously the first thing, the thing is not online, right? So you got to do it like normal. Then you got to, and you probably have to go through a lawyer to get all this shit done because there is no like,
Oh my God.
okay, simplest thing that helps set up a company here.
Yeah.
When you go online to set up a private limited company, they give you a sample memorandum of articles. Normally, to do that, you have to go through a lawyer to get a thing done and submit it, right? In Singapore, they cut the process. So here's a sample that you can basically use ad hoc and just get your process going. Like you're not tied to all the rest of the crap. And another thing is Singapore doesn't really give a shit about your annual returns and stuff until you become big. They understand that small companies, you're too busy building the business that you may not have time or money to hire an accountant to do it. Usually the government does not get on your ass until you're, 3 years down and you haven't given any kind of,
Taxes.
compliance.
Yeah.
And then we'll be like, okay, man, just like back up here. Let's just
You
get
work
this
on
shit
it.
together, right? And even then, they give you so much fucking time to like, okay, guys, this is what we do. And even when, like, for example, ACRA stuff, right? So when they go through the whole, what do you call it? The law thing, take you to the court.
Yeah.
They actually have a meeting
Okay.
or a seminar you can go to for new directors. So you can go and learn how to figure such out. And then these guys will teach you, right, this is how you do it. And then you actually get your composition fees written off, kind of thing. It is the smallest things, but
That's great, right? I didn't know that.
right? It's a super small things, but it takes so much off your head, and also like even like expansion. Last year they made back in the day, or like 2015 early, if you had one corporate shareholder, you had to go through auditing. Auditing is a $5,000 process, roughly, right? Just crazy, depending on the transaction, all that stuff. $3,000 to $5,000 every year. But now, if your group has less than $10 million in group revenue, you don't have to do audits. That makes sense, right? So you could have like multiple companies and everything's doing business, and all of a sudden you don't have to spend
Yeah, thank you for that example.
$5,000.
That is great.
That kind of stuff is fucking brilliant.
That
But then again, pretty much everything I'm saying is from a business person's point of view.
Yeah,
So
of
I guess
course.
the civic liberties and all that stuff. There's this whole
Muddle area that you don't dive
abyss. Let's put it that way.
in. Okay.
But like I said,
Yeah.
it's just Singapore's only learning to get to that level of understand freedom even.
Yeah.
Really.
Let's switch gear a bit and go back to first job, and after that, actually, I got to know you through a crowdfunding project. You were building a. That was when you have full on beard.
Yep.
And you were carpenting away, and building a co-working space. What did that happen? I mean, which I didn't contribute, by the way. So I'm sorry.
It's all good.
What happened?
It did-
What's the story? Yeah.
So I had Spiffy,
Yeah.
and I wanted to move Spiffy to a new location because that location was getting too. It was a small place. It was like 400 square foot, 500 square foot kind of space.
So that was the first location, was it?
Yeah, first location. Of
Not the
Spiffy.
one at River Valley.
Bookey.
Oh, Bookey, correct.
Right. Okay. So then I wanted to get a space, so I found this place in Little India, and I go and sign the fucking lease. So it's like 3 stories,
3 stories.
right? But it's Little India, so it's kind of cheap, right?
Okay.
I was perfect for the business. So we had space for a cafe, space for a bar, everything, right? And then 2 fucking days after I signed the lease, the riots in Little India happened, right? And I'm like, So what happens is, in situations like that, Singapore basically goes into bureaucratic shutdown mode because nobody knows how to deal with it. So that URA basically wouldn't process any applications because, you don't want to be the guy who approved a bar after a drinking from. But then they wouldn't even give me a conversion to a cafe license because, just like they wouldn't. It was just even more maddening because, like, after the hoo-ha died down, like, a year later, the guy opposite me got a change of use. I'm like, anyways. So after, like, so at first I was trying to do the bar, but that wasn't going to work out. So I tried to reapply, create a cafe concept, try to do that. So that didn't work out.
At the same time, while running Spiffy at Boat Quay.
Yes. Then I thought, okay, everything's going to shit. The only thing I can use it for is its current use because I have a 4.5-year lease. I paid 50 grand.
Which is actually really smart because, you want to do a long lease. So
yes,
the rent control thing.
Exactly. So I did everything right, except that, thank God to my fellow countrymen. They royally ass-fucked me.
Which stage were you when that happened? You were about to open or?
Bro, I signed the lease, right?
Okay, you signed the lease.
2 days later, they flipped the ambulance, bro.
Could you go work to the landlord like, hey, I was trying to do this, but it didn't work out, man.
What kind of fucking stupid landlord will I hire to back out, bro?
No, but it's like, I don't have money to pay. Too bad.
They'll sue the company, and they will...
Oh, you sign under the company?
Of course, always
okay.
It's stupid I sign under you.
No, but I mean, I thought you would do a separate thing, and then you do that, and it's a shell company.
Well, to do a shell company, you must have something of value to protect.
That's true.
So I was actually trying to create the shell company, which is, took the lease on, but realistically speaking, you couldn't back out. It was just, I had taken money from people. So I had raised money, about 50, 60 grand to take over the premises and do the basics, right?
Right.
So I'm already like 70 grand in debt as a company to people who have taken money from. So I can't be like, hey guys, somebody had a riot, so I'm going to pull out and 70 grand is gone. Like, that is not how the world works, right? Like, Singapore is small, man. If you cheat people, like,
Karma.
Not just karma, like, people know, like, the investor community is small, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, fuck, I got to get into it. So then I thought, like, hey man, co-working spaces, everybody's building it. Like, I can do one. So it's like, cool, let's do one. And then I was super broke, right? And then I was like, okay, let's see what kind of construction material we can. So I looked at timber because it's the cheapest thing to get. So I got a truck of timber. And it only cost like $1,000 because I got like unshaven, unprocessed, just planks and stuff.
Okay.
And then little did I know that, on the day the timber is supposed to come, I'm like, jolly, just go there. Like, then I'm like, big fucking truck of 10 feet planks and plywood. And there's no crane. I thought like they would have at least a fucking crane to kind of like take it and just put it down.
No,
here,
they
right?
just chop it off.
No, everything's sitting on a fucking truck. So this is big Chinese dude, right? Mainland Chinese guy, as a driver. And he just looks at me and he's just like, and then I have not exercised in ages. So I just get on a glove and I start carrying this truckload of wood inside. And then, I kind of died after that. But then I realized that all the pieces of wood that I got, so it's not like, wood is not like a straight thing, right? So if you just buy like unprocessed, unshaved wood, some wood is, and most of it's been sitting outside, so some's like warped like this, some's like warped like this, even though it's a fucking straight plank. So you can't put like two pieces of wood together and make a fucking table. You gotta like find the right piece, match, and it's a fucking big ton of wood, right? And then you gotta match it, then you gotta shave it down, like, okay, you can. Then you gotta clamp it, then you gotta screw it down.
I know this, actually a lot of people wouldn't have known this, but I know this because I actually built a library of sorts outside my house. It was like no one told you what you signed up for.
I know, right?
And then you just like, oh, this is so hard. And then you have a lot more respect for people who are actually carpenter. And it's like, how do you get this straight? Like, how did you do that? This is magic.
So when I got this one, when I built this one, so for comparison, that beam, I don't know if you can see it. So a beam like this, right? If you get it unshaven, unprocessed, it's like $18. Like that cross section, right? Yeah. If you get the same, like chosen, shaven, whatever, it's close to like $40, right? But the amount of time saved, crazy. So it's just, if I had probably tried to build a co-working space with the good wood, like processed wood, like.
So what happened to the co-working space?
So I spent 6 months building it, bro. Because like
Did the project get funded?
no, the crowdsourcing thing failed. I only had some money from the initial investors.
Okay.
But I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. So I went to build it. So I was bartending, then I would come and work in the day, build it, then I would go and bartend.
Just you.
So I found this other guy who was an engineer, so he kind of helped me out. And we were basically like, doing it, whenever we had time left. And then it took us for like 6 months to kind of completely finish it. And by that time, I had to go back to Spiffy and rescue the business because it was kind of like, going to shits. So I never had time to market the place. But eventually it's a good thing. Now it's my office and I actually live there and all that. So works out. But it was definitely complete fucking failure.
No, I think you took a very positive spin to it by thinking of ideas it was all good ideas.
Yeah, I know, right?
Good idea.
That's what she said.
Hey, so moving to Spiffy, and now we're talking about it. This is the second location at Amoy Street, and you're also running Dapper Coffee in the day. Can you just share like a 2-minute story of like how Spiffy Dapper came to be? Tell me what your most proud thing that happened.
So basically, I was working at Cufflink Club part-time.
Yeah.
And I was running my web design company. Then a friend of mine told me there's a space in Boat Key available, just sitting there. So I made my friend go and talk to this guy and convince this guy who had the space that I was the greatest bartender since sliced bread and fire and everything. So then I went to the first meeting and I didn't say anything. At the end of the meeting, I said, I'll do it. Second meeting, I said, I want 51%. And I had 1.5 grand in my pocket, so I put that money. Friend put like a grand, 1.5 grand. I made that guy put in like 11, 12 grand, whatever. We bought everything secondhand. The only new thing we had was my speed rail, which is my, where you keep the bottles and the ice well. And we bought really good alcohol and crystal glassware. So it was a complete shithole with beautiful glassware and great alcohol and half-decent cocktails. And then it was the start of the cocktail boom, really. There weren't really a lot of cocktail bars around, and we didn't have any money for marketing, so we basically talked shit about ourselves. Idea came from Eminem's Last Round in 8 Mile. Then I basically said it was the worst bar in the world in Singapore. And then people came and because the expectations were so low that okay, we have to see this fucking shitty bar. They were like, hey, it's not too bad. And then over time it became like this hangout for the techies, and then we moved here. So we started Dapper Coffee in Boat Key. Didn't work out so well. Mm-hmm. We came here. A girl called Christine Sia took it over, and she's a fucking rock star. She made it work, So I made Spiffy work, and she made Dapper Coffee work, and that's where we are. Now we're more of like an incubation company. So what we do is find people, put them into a situation, stress test them, okay, cool. And then they have an idea, we fund them with the location and equipment, and okay, now go run your business.
No, I love the idea behind Dapper Coffee actually. It's a very interesting concept. You might be one of the first pioneers who brought, people own the model of people's own businesses where the business is actually equally shared by all the people who are working in it.
I would say it's not a cooperative model. No, I tried.
It's not nothing like Aris Mealy or like SF. They have cheese board.
So I tried the cooperative model, but the problem is, just a practical thing. When you give out equity in a company, you can't just take equity back. You got to buy equity back. You got to buy somebody out, right? And not all the times when a relationship ends, it's a nice ending. So you have all these remnants lying around. You don't want that. So what? And I did direct equity, just giving it out and sharing it at first couple of times. But when things went to shit, I had a lot of cleanup work to do, and I don't want to do that. So what we do now is we provide a safe situation where they don't have to put any risk. So they still get paid their salary. We do all the investment, but over time they get stock options. So let's say in 5 years you could own 20-30% of the company, something like that. So that way, if let's say you fuck off in 3 years, you still have what you worked for, but it's not like everything. I could find somebody else to replace and assign their stock option to somebody else. So it gives a little bit more freedom, right? So and obviously at a later time, if the person has money and want to buy us out and take the business for themselves, they can do that. But I do like it's almost like a tech model or angel investing style of creating businesses, because otherwise it's very hard to control losses, really. Because that's going to happen without a doubt. That somebody's going to screw up and you're going to lose some money. So I guess the key thing is to control how much you lose and how much cleanup you have to do after you lose it.
Yeah. No, I think that's very interesting because I think you have gone through a whole series of hiring and firing and working with different people, and you have came out with that model that sort of like is best for you. Could you just explain? I just want to dig a little bit more because I'm really fascinated by the model you have. How did it came to be and why this instead of that sort of sort of the evolution of the model that you were trying, and what motivated you to try a different model versus the traditional one where I'm the owner and you come work for me.
So the owner-employee model works when you have a fair amount of startup capital and you have a good OPEX going, which means for the next 6 months you're not worried about money. Your business can only be doing okay, but you're going to pump into marketing, you're going to do everything on time, like bang, bang, right? And then usually that's what people do. They have enough capital, and when the business does well, they incentivize certain people on a revenue share or something like that, on targets, so that the business goes okay. But the problem with that model is, number one, there's only so many people you can incentivize without drastically cutting into your margins. Second thing is, I have seen so many bartenders or baristas or cooks who've gone into profit share agreements with their bosses. 2 years later, the boss is like, you're out. All of a sudden, they spend like 2 years building something. Of course, they made some money in between, but they also took some of the risk, right? There's salary plus profit share. But they have nothing to show for it. Like, back to fucking zero, right? You could have been like rolling with fucking 6-7 grand a month, but all of a sudden, the boss decided to cancel your contract because you were so good at the job that you have delegated everything and you're just supervising. And all of a sudden, he realizes that, wait, I don't need to give you that money. I can keep that money for them. So you're fired. So, from an employee perspective, I did not want to do that to people. So that's why I went on the equity side of things. Equity side means that you only make money when the business actually decides to reward its stakeholders, which is dividends. And I want people to buy into the idea that it is not about money. It is about, not just about money, really. You got to build a business, but you got to take care of people. If you take care of people, your business will grow. So I want to incentivize people to make themselves useless. Which is, if, for example, I hire you as a manager, you're a good manager if you don't have to do anything, but the venue runs. You're a crappy manager if you have to fucking do everything, right, all the time. So, for you to be good, I need to make sure you have a reason to be good for the future. So, for example, with Christine, I say, great, you run the place. Now, Christine ran the place and she gets stock options progressively. And now what she also does is she built this person called Liz, who was a barista. Now she's starting a bakery. And now Liz is going to be business leader and she will get stock options. But because Christine mentored this person, Christine gets a stake in that business as well. So I'm making sure that in the long run, Christine basically has to do almost nothing because she has already done the work. She has invested in people, she has trained people, and now she actually gets back to get the return. So I think that's kind of why we do what we do. It doesn't make you instantly rich, but it actually gives you a career. Like you have to think 4 or 5 years ahead to to like make sense.
Definitely a very interesting model that,
Yeah.
that you're working on. I mean, I just want to put this in within 60 minutes, so I'm just going to skip ahead and then ask you what I want to ask you actually is about the financing game, and so have you talk a little bit if you were to be where you are now and sort of go back to early days and tell Josh explain the financing game, especially on F&B and bar. What would be the sort of like a 2-5 minutes?
Okay. First thing, if you're going into anything F&B, this is a real estate based business, which means the real estate is your biggest strength and your weakness, right? You don't need a fancy interior or fancy equipment to make something work. You can buy things secondhand. You don't need to invest so much money into fancy shit. Get what you need to get a place going and keep as much money as possible for operational expenses and for stuff. If you do that, there's a much reasonable chance of you succeeding. And also, keep your things movable, so if you list does fuck up, you can move easily. But finance is side, right?
And getting money together.
Getting money together. It really helps if you have, once you have a basic concept and an idea, and you have people know that you can take on experience, take on responsibility, people are willing to put money behind you, right? So the key thing, I guess, is if you're just an employee who is building it, I would say do not go into this without actually working in the business. I see too many people who are like, every fucking college graduate now wants to own a fucking cafe, and I'm like, are you fucking mental? Like,
and also bankers,
right? Any banker, any lawyer who is tired of life, like, oh, I'm gonna open a food and beverage outlet. Like, great, But like, why? Like, go and work in a business. Like, you wouldn't open a law firm without being a fucking lawyer, unless you're in the drama Suits. But
it's a great TV show.
Great TV show. But same thing. Like, you don't go into F&B without working in the business first. Work in the business, and if you have money, if you have friends and family money to give you, take that money, do your thing, whatever. But if you're starting from where I started, which was basically absolute jack shit, don't have anything, don't know anybody, I think the key thing is to build those networks and let people know that you're good for something, good for the money, so as to say. Like, I would suggest small things like, now it's kind of, it's okay to kind of like make something at home and sell it to your friends and family. It's actually legal to do that under any laws right now. So I would suggest don't go into stuff without knowing what the fuck's going on. Go and get yourself a food hygiene certificate, right? Make something, sell it to your friends, gain some reaction. Then there's a lot of night festivals and pop-ups going on. Go and do your pop-ups. Learn how to serve these guys. Then if the brand is going significantly, okay, great. You have now, instead of just like taking other people's money, maybe you have like $10,000 of your own. You put the $10,000 first, and then you get somebody to put another $10,000 in. Then you have a little bit more control of the company. Then you go and invest in fucking pushcart, whatever the fuck it is. But go slow, go easy. Too many people want to go everything one shot. But the problem, slower process, and I know that, if you go slow. It took me 3.5 years to get from that to this.
You went to a crash course, though.
Right? I did want a crash course, but it's also a very slow crash course, right? It's like, I believe in maximum iterations. Like, try, fail, try again, fail, try again. And lose as less every time you fail. That's the whole point of how I do it. But like, if you grow slowly, like some of the biggest brands, Beyond Shin, Artichoke, the chicken place, I forgot the name.
Chicken place?
Beyond has a Thai chicken.
But
that one.
Yeah.
So it's Nenepok. All of these he prototype with pop-ups. Taming, who owns Kush and Quarters, he did durian creme brulee. Made it, sold it at pop-ups, got traction, asked people to buy money. Park Beach Delhi, same deal. People who are actually doing it properly, like all of these guys, figured out a concept, showed people what's up, and got money.
I love it.
Easier to do it that way. Like, otherwise, You can talk all the shit you want, you know. Where's the fucking real stuff, right?
Yeah, so let's move on to some quick questions, but you don't need to answer quick. So this one, I'll flip it a little bit, actually. If your 18-year-old self were to travel in time to meet you, what advice would he give you?
Don't change.
Don't change?
Do exactly the same. Fuck up even more.
And that's what you would say to younger self, too. Both ways.
Bro, like this, the beauty of screwing up is just so brilliant. And I think the coolest fucking verse of it is like, you know, failure is not the end of things. It's just figuring out how to win. It's just hacking at something and figuring out how to get around a problem. There are obviously some very smart people who became billionaires like that. There are. And that entrepreneur porn is what's driving a lot of people, right? But if you look at majority of startups, majority of businesses, they are created by people who are around 35 to 40 years old, 45 years old. People who have worked in a business, understood a fucking business, and hey, let's change this fucker. And to do that, the only way to understand what the fuck is going on is go fucking mental at hacking what the fuck is going on. Are you gonna spend, let's say if you're 20, you're gonna spend the fucking next 15 years failing at fucking everything. But in about 15 years, you'll be like, if you have tried hard enough at failing, you'll figure out how to win. That's it. There's no shortcut on that.
No blue pill.
Yeah, no blue pill.
Would you, any books to recommend or documentaries? Top three. Top three.
Books. I would read, the books aside, I would read anything by Jack London. Jack London was the first writing superstar. He's a guy who came out of poverty, wrote, but everything he wrote, he experienced. He went to the gold rush. He went on a whaling ship. He was an oyster pirate. He was a man of experience who wrote about his experience. And the person to come after that was Hemingway. So it was Hemingway's granddad, if you could look at that. And the stuff he wrote, everybody knows him for White Fang and Call of the Wild, which is his two well-known children's books. But pretty much all his writings talk about man and nature, man and man, nature and nature. That's just this very gritty way of looking, a very pragmatic way of looking at life. So I think that's one author you have to read. One book that I read that changed, it's very hard to find. It's called Brandstorm, A Story of Love and Betrayal. That is when I got the idea of different economies, the barter economy, the industrial economy, the knowledge economy, and the human economy. That really changed, fundamentally changed.
Brandstorm.
A Story of Love and Betrayal, something like that. You can find it used on Amazon. It's out of print.
Wow.
Kindle. It is.
Kindle version, maybe.
No, it's used books.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's definitely out of print. Fucking hard to get. But like I read it in Nanyang Polytechnic's library just by chance, and it blew my mind. Like just changed the way I think about the world. So it forced me to look at shit. You know, how has our processes changed? How has economy changed based on? And like for example, when the forums and stuff came, that was a knowledge economy because you have all this fucking knowledge. And now, so that was the information economy. Now we're in the knowledge economy where we are like information. Let's figure out what the fuck it is going on. But now we're all moving into the human economy where we are kind of saying what the fuck we want and people are actually giving it to us, kind of. Last book, I guess, recently, Connectography. It is a new book, Parakana or something like that. This guy is basically, I'm actually reading that book right now. It's fucking brilliant. The concept of the book is very simple. What would the world be if all boundaries were eliminated because of how we're connected?
Wow.
And it's just looking at if global warming continues, where is going to be agriculture? In fact, it's actually going to be in Canada and Russia. Interestingly, in 100 years, that will be where most of agriculture will be done. How super cities will be more powerful than countries. You know, things like that. So So I think Connectography is a fucking brilliant book
Great.
to read to kind of like understand where we're gonna be for the next, I don't know, 100 years. So that's a brilliant book to look at.
Well, I'm adding it to my reading list. Morning routines or routines and habits that you find important to you.
Right. So I don't really have a morning routine, but always have either jerk off or have sex once a day.
Great. Yeah. Important.
People, this is controversial subject, I guess. Most people don't look at it, but man, so many of the world problems comes without dopamine. Dopamine for the win. That's what's up.
Okay.
If your head's okay, if you're not like fucking worried about fucking all the time, which you are kind of worried as a male person.
Okay. This is only advice for male.
Right. I don't know. I think with women as well, I think. Like, if you... I personally think the most empowering thing for a woman is a fucking vibrator. Like, just like, awesome.
Right.
Like, to be in control of your sex lives is brilliant. So I would think just being in control of your happiness and being able to do it naturally without medicine helps. So, yeah.
Okay. If you have a bus poster anywhere, what's it gonna say? Or you can decorate a whole MRT carriage.
A what?
A bus poster, like a bus stop. You have this poster that. So you have a poster. You can put anything on it.
Huh. I guess I have to plagiarize the Brits and say, keep calm and carry on. There's nothing else you can do, really. Fucking get on with it.
What are some of the most common misconceptions about you or your work?
I guess the most common misconception is that it's glamorous. It's not, because I spent yesterday fixing a tap. Today I'll be fixing a leak. Last week I was fixing toilets. Running out of licensing. Other misconception is that you can get really rich by doing it. Fact is, if you want to grow a business, you're not going to get rich anytime soon. Most of the time you're broke. I'm mostly broke most of the time. That's that, I guess. That's the key things. People think it's like glamour, but it is really just a retarded amount of work. I do nothing but work. I spend time with my wife a little bit, if possible. But every day I wake up, I switch on, take a shower, I switch on, I'm at work. So this is really it. But I guess there are some people who have made it and kind of have a good life. But
Yeah.
but you pay for it with blood, right?
Yeah.
Like, you do at least 3 to 4 years of ridiculous work. Like, there's no off switch. It's just like, then maybe, if you're lucky, you'll get to that space.
What are some of the projects that the audience can look forward to? You do a few things coming out, right?
Yeah,
F&B,
so
@.sg.
So the key thing right now is 2 big projects, other than whatever's happening. Like, so the incubation of F&B concepts is kind of like
The process
running. It's already going, right? But the key thing we're doing right now, I'm working on a B2B side for the F&B industry. So, in the process of getting seed funding and all that stuff sorted out to kind of scale it. But the thing I'm really excited about is a project called Social Farms. It is my kahuna project to feed the world kind of thing. So that's, we're in the process of getting the space to do the initial prototype for research. But the idea is basically aquaponics, which is using fish waste to feed plants, like hydroponics but with fish. And using sensors and the data from it, and use big data analysis to figure out failure points, predict them, so that I could have systems that I could dump in the middle of Sahara and create food with very little water. All I need is the sun and a little bit of, top up on the water tank once in a while, and I could have sustainable farms anywhere in the world. So it's driven by the idea that in the next 30 to 50 years, most of our food basins will not be arable. We will not be able to produce food. And even though we have very good production of grains, and but we haven't figured out proteins and decentralized production of greens for majority of the world's population. So I want to figure out how I can use technology to help people kind of like be in control of their food supplies. You know?
That's awesome. So where can people find you on the internet? Just to wrap it off.
Just Google
follow your work.
Google Abhishek, Cherian George, I guess. You know, I'm the only guy with that name in the world.
Okay. There we go. We're done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Pretty good.